Vice President Kamala Harris delivered what her campaign has called her closing argument last night in Washington, D.C. at the spot former President Donald Trump spoke from shortly before the Capitol riot almost in January 2021. Donald Trump distanced himself from a comedian who called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage at his rally, but did not personally apologize. For News Central, Hagen has more.
Kamala Harris urged Americans to write the next chapter for their country and reject Donald Trump's chaos and division as she delivered a powerful closing argument to voters against the glowing backdrop of the White House. The Democratic vice president warned against Trump's lust for unchecked power as she addressed a mass rally at the site where her Republican rival riled up a mob before the deadly January 6, 2021 assault on the U.S. Capitol.
Donald Trump intends to use the United States military against American citizens who simply disagree with him. People he calls, quote, the enemy from within. America, this is not a candidate for president who is thinking about how to make your life better. This is someone who is unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and out for unchecked power.
Harris's campaign claims 75,000 people attended the rally. The number could not be immediately verified, but the crowd was unusually large in an election that has seen heavy enthusiasm on both sides. Harris and Trump remained in a dead heat in the polls, with both desperately trying to convince undecided voters in 7 key swing states. Trump has spent the last 2 days trying to tamp down a firestorm over his weekend rally in New York's famed Madison Square Garden, at which a warm-up comedian jibed that Puerto Rico was a floating island of garbage. In a TV appearance, Trump said the comedian who made the comments about Puerto Rico probably shouldn't have been there.
Somebody said there was a comedian that joked about Puerto Rico or something, and I have no idea who he was. Never saw him, never heard of him, and don't want to hear of him. But I have no idea. They put a comedian in, which everybody does. You throw comedians in. You don't vet them and go crazy. It's nobody's fault. But somebody said some bad things.
President Joe Biden came under fire for responding to the comments by appearing to call Trump supporters garbage, although he later said he was referring to the Republicans' rhetoric. Trump later rallied in blue-collar Allentown in Pennsylvania, perhaps the most crucial of the 7 battleground states that are expected to decide the election, and a city that is home to a large Puerto Rican community. Fears of a repeat of the chaos from 4 years ago hang heavy over this year's election, with Trump repeatedly indicating that he might again refuse to accept the result if he loses. For News Central, I'm Hagen.
And yet, for more on this, I'm being joined by our international correspondent, Afia Hagen, yet again. Afia, good to have you back again this evening. It's, closing arguments time from what we hear, and Trump is really heating up the polity, let's put it that way. But can you tell us more on what the latest is from the campaign trail today?
Absolutely right. It is the closing arguments, final 6 days before polling day. It's worth noting that 54 million votes have already been cast in early voting. And you are seeing the candidates crisscrossing the United States in a last bid to get those votes in. So today, Kamala Harris is encouraging people to get out the vote in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Her husband, Douglas Emhoff, will be in Las Vegas at a rally with students at the University of Nevada. Donald Trump, meanwhile, is pitching in North Carolina and will later go to Wisconsin. His running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, will be at a town hall in Pennsylvania, and the VP candidate nominee Tim Walz for the Democratic Party will be in North Carolina at door-knocking events, and then later on at a concert in Asheville. So all hands to the pump and a really, really busy time in this final 6 days of the election. And like you said, it's closing arguments, it's winding up their campaigns and doing what they can to get this over the line.
Well, not without its drama. Could you tell us more about President Joe Biden's gaffe from yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, this campaign has been full of drama and it frankly never stops. So this is still the fallout from that huge Trump rally in Madison Square Garden over the weekend, where you had that comedian saying that Puerto Rico was a floating island of garbage. Now, Joe Biden was at an event yesterday. It was an event on Zoom. It was sort of like a campaign call, getting people out to vote. And he basically said something along the lines of, responding to that island of garbage comment, he said, the only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. That's what he was quoted as saying. Now, the White House later released a transcript which included a handy apostrophe and said the president was talking about the words of the comedian and not all Trump supporters. Now, quite understandably, the GOP, the Republicans, have really seized on this. Donald Trump earlier on today at a rally saying, you know, this is what the Democrats think of you. They think that you are all garbage. They think that Trump supporters are garbage. And meanwhile, the Democratic Party playing this down, Kamala Harris saying that she does not condone anybody being persecuted because of who they vote for. And really, this is why we haven't seen much of Joe Biden out on the campaign trail, because he has a habit of making these unfortunate gaffes.
Well, regarding that gaffe, and if the situation were reversed, do you think that the campaign managers for Trump would actually have felt any compunction to want to perhaps retrieve such a statement if Trump had made something like that?
Well, this is the thing, is that actually earlier on today, I was looking at all the kind of gaffes that have been made along the line. And if you look at what Trump has said about Democratic supporters, you know, saying that anybody who's Black and Hispanic who votes for the Democrats needs to have their head read. You know, he said some pretty terrible things about Kamala Harris and about Democratic Party supporters along the way. So there kind of is a double standard here, certainly. And I think, you know, along the way, where we've had Donald Trump not just making gaffes about Democratic supporters, but Kamala Harris herself saying she's a low IQ person, questioning her race. You know, he's never apologized, and he just kind of keeps on down this road. That is his rhetoric. That's his MO. You know, it's about riling people up. And he doesn't apologize. No apology for the comedian making that gaffe. You know, he did that interview with Fox News, which I included in my piece there. And, you know, he's trying to really distance himself from those comments. And that's what works for the Republican Party at the moment. But when you really peel this back, what this is about, especially in these last couple of weeks, is getting in the vote. And only last week, we saw both the Democratic and Republican Party courting the Latino vote at events, you know, especially in those swing states, something that they haven't really done up until this point in the election campaign. And that Latino vote is a huge one, and actually traditionally quite conservative. And so the Democrats, you know, have been accused of taking that Latino vote for granted. But now we could see a shift in that. We could see the people of the Latino community in America, in particular Puerto Ricans, thinking to themselves, well, actually, does Donald Trump deserve my vote? So you could see them not voting at all, voting for the Democratic Party. And that could be damaging in a race where literally every single vote counts.
Well, it's that time again every evening when we ask you what the numbers are. We know it's very tight as it sits right now, but what are we expecting today? What is it?
And the numbers are even tighter than the last time we spoke. So at the moment, like I said, 54 million people have already voted in early voting and mail-in voting. And at the moment, Kamala Harris has a very tiny lead over Donald Trump, 48% to Donald Trump's 47% of registered voters. So she's ahead by only 1 percentage point. Again, still well within that margin of error. Now, Vice President Harris also maintains a narrow advantage in 2 of the 3 blue wall states that basically represent a path to victory in the Electoral College. And in Michigan, Harris holds a lead over Trump by 48%. And she also leads in Wisconsin, where her support is 51% to Trump's 45%. The race is tied in Pennsylvania, where they both have 48% of that vote. And 3 states where Trump kind of has more favor of those votes. So a small lead, a slight lead at the moment, 48% Harris has over Trump's 47%. But like I said, that is well within the margin of error. It's practically a dead heat at the moment.
Well, I want to say thank you very much, then, Afia, for always bringing us the details regarding what's happening in the U.S. Thank you. And now, a final piece of news now. Relatives and supporters of the late councilwoman Mariel Franco and her driver Anderson Gomez protested in front of the Justice Tribunal Court as their alleged murderers faced the first day of public trial in Rio de Janeiro. On March 14, 2018, the charismatic Black and LGBT rights activist turned Rio councilwoman was gunned down in her car. She was 38 years old. Her driver, Anderson Gomez, was also killed in the attack. The world was shocked by the death. The focus soon shifted to organized crime and the potential role of militia. These parliamentary gangs unlawfully amass a fortune in real estate by appropriating public lands and inciting panic in specific districts.
Mas hoje a gente vai tentar vencer, que é isso, depois de tanto tempo. Isso não, a justiça pra gente, na verdade, seria se minha mãe estivesse aqui, se Anderson estivesse aqui. Minha mãe foi uma parlamentar eleita com mais de 46 mil votos. Então, o júri de hoje, ele é o primeiro passo para essa justiça, porque a gente não pode normalizar que nenhuma vida seja ceifada da forma que tiraram eles da gente. Então, a gente tá um pouco hoje sem palavras, assim, muito mexido com tudo, porque é reviver aquele momento, né? A gente chega no local do crime, encontra a Mariel como a gente encontrou ainda. Tem ali um momento de reconhecer o corpo da Mari no IML e depois toda essa avalanche que vem.
And that's all the stories this hour from beyond the continent. Now, to remember, you can watch News Central live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.